أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فانطلقا حتى إذا أتيا أهل قرية استطعما أهلها فأبوا أن يضيفوهما فوجدا فيها جدارا يريد أن ينقض فأقامه قال لو شئت لاتخذت عليه أجرا قال هذا فراق بيني وبينك سأنبئك بتأويل ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا صدق الله العظيم. My dear respected brothers and elders, we were covering the extraordinary journey between Musa alayhi salam and Khidr alayhi salam. And the objective of this journey is that Musa alayhi salatu wasalam will require and ascertain a type of knowledge which he did not possess, which Khidr alayhi salam had. Jamni, should we go over the 12 adab again? Not today. We've done it 3 times now. Okay. The 12 etiquettes. هل أتبعك على أن تعلمني مما علمت رشدا? Can I follow you with the understanding that you teach me some of the guidance or some of the knowledge which Allah has taught you? Imam Razi rahmatullah alayhi, we have 12 etiquettes of a student. So we will repeat again today, yes? So far in the journey we've had 2 extraordinary events which took place and Musa alayhi salatu wasalam objected. The first one was yes, when he made a hole inside the ship. And he said, لَقَدْ جِئْتَ شَيْئًا إِمْرًا. You've perpetrated something which is inexplicable, strange, borderline wrong. And in the second incident, which was he severed the head of the child, and there he said, لَقَدْ جِئْتَ شَيْئًا نُكْرًا. You have perpetrated something which is utterly wrong, condemnable. So in the first one was Imra, in the second was Nukra. And the difference is, as I mentioned yesterday, Fakhruddin Razi mentions Imra is from Amir al-Shay, a ajib, something that is strange. And the reason that was strange is because the ship still survived. There was a hole, yes, but water did not enter. But in the second one, it was clearly condemned. Why? Because there's no turning back. The child had died. And on both occasions I mentioned that even though Musa alayhi salatu wasalam gave his word, Satajiduni insha'Allahu sabira wa la a'si laka amra, that you will find me surely, if Allah wills, to be patient, and I will not contravene your command, I will not disobey you. Even though he made this promise, on both occasions he spoke. The reason to this is because when he made the promise with the assumption that he will not see anything apparent that will contradict the Sharia. He did not know that these events will take place. And also he was reassured. Why? Because Allah had instructed him to take this knowledge from Khidr alayhi salam. And so yesterday we explicated on the notion that every single person who has reached the age of maturity and they are accountable agent, mukallaf by Sharia, they are binded by the Sharia. It is imperative for them to follow the Sharia. And we are mukallaf, we are legally responsible to judge by the apparent. And this spiritual state, that some argue that they reach to a stage of spirituality where the taklif, meaning the accountability, falls, and they don't have to no longer even pray salah. Some of them say, this is what? This is kufr. This is clear heresy, had in deen. Doesn't matter how big of a buzurg, how big sheikh a person becomes, they are not above the sharia. And Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, both incidents clearly demonstrate this, that even though he made a promise, but because he is a Nabi of Allah, and his job is to implement the sharia of Allah, it was not befitting for him to stay silent. That how can you murder a child without any explanation? I mean, لَقَدْ قَتَلْتَ نَفْسًا بِغَيْرِ النَّفْسِ, innocent child, a child that did not kill anybody else. So the second time, the first time Musa alayhi salatu wasalam said, I've forgotten. لَا تُرْهِقْنِي مِنْ أَمْرِي عُسْرًا, do not be harsh with me. The second time he did not say, I have forgotten. The second time he had to speak because it was so severe. So what did he say the second time? قَدْ بَلَغْتَ مِنْ لَدُنِّي عُذْرًا, you've reached the pinnacle of excuse now. Now if I question, لَا تُصَاحِبْنِي, do not keep me in your company. You have every excuse now not to keep me in your company because twice I have questioned and objected your decision. So Khidr alayhi salatu wasalam, they accepted this. He accepted this. Okay, final chance. فَانْطَلَقَا, they proceeded with their journey. حَتَّى إِذَا أَتَيَا أَهْلَ قَرْيَةٍ, until they reached a particular village, a town. Some ulama say, where was this town? Imam Razi rahmatullah alayh, his inclination, it was Antakiya. It is an old ancient town of Islamic, not Islamic, Andalus, Spain at that time. And this is where this town was. And this confirms the opinion that the Majma' al-Bahrain, the confluence of these two seas, was next to Andalus. So they went there and they asked for food. It was the custom that any guests that come outside into the town, they would be fed. What did they do? Said no. They were conjuice. Said no. I'm not going to give you anything. Yeah. Guest. Brothers, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to entertain guests. It was a thing amongst the elders that even now, alhamdulillah, elders have this. When guests come, what do? They look after them. What's the current generation do? Open the door, nobody's in, close it. Okay? Nobody's in. We don't want anybody to come inside. Our hearts become so tightened that we don't want anybody to come in our house. Forget any guests, we don't want our relatives to come. Can you ring me before you come? Ring me. Ring me before you come. Even though it's not necessary to ring somebody before you go. In fact, the Quran says, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَكُمْ ارْجِعُوا فَارْجِعُوا هُوَ أَزْكَى لَكُمْ, that if you go to somebody's house and you knock on their door and you are told go return, they tell you can't come in, then listen to them, obey. Why? Because this is a means of purifying your heart. Subhanallah. Imagine you go to somebody's house, you knock on their door, they say don't come inside, we're busy. What do? You say look at that, how disrespectful. Should let me in. But they might have majboori, they might have some sort of personal need. A Sahabi radiallahu anhu mentions that, I want you to act upon this verse. I wanted somebody to say to me, you can't come in. So for 3 years I used to knock on people's door, and after 3 years one person said to me, don't come in, we're busy. So he goes, yes, I've acted upon this verse now, of Surah Nur. So anyway, this city, this town, Khidr alayhi salam, Musa alayhi salam, both, they sought food from them, and they clearly rejected it. No, we're not giving you food. Now, whilst they're in the city, there was a wall, and the Quran says, فَأَرَادَ أَن يَنْقَضَّ, this wall intended to fall, to recline, to collapse. So what do we understand from this? فَأَرَادَ, that the wall made intention. Can the wall make intention? Can the wall make intention? No. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ascribed irada, volition, to the wall. something that's inanimate, something that doesn't have no life, no knowledge, no awareness, no idrak, no comprehension, no cognition, nothing. Allah says, فَأَرَادَ, that this wall made intention. So what do we understand from this? Metaphor. Quran is full of metaphors and majaz. Yes, this is the beauty of the Quran. Some people don't believe in metaphor, literalist. The literalist dullards, yes, who take everything literally. Everything literal. This is what the translation says. This is how it is. This is against the Quran. If you look at the Quran, the fasah and the balagh of the Quran has high level of intricate metaphorical devices, so on and so forth. So فَأَرَادَ أَن يَنْقَضَّ. So what Khidr alayhi salatu wasalam did, with his hand miraculously, he straightened the wall. The wall was about to fall, so he straightened it, made it solid, consolidated it. So Musa alayhi salatu wasalam said, these people have refused to give us food, and you've done this free for them. لو شئت لاتخذت عليه أجرا. You should take some wage from them, so at least we can get food. Khidr alayhi salatu wasalam said, that's it now. Third time. Yes? What the Quran says. Let's read what the Quran says. فَانْطَلَقَا, so they both proceeded. حَتَّى إِذَا أَتَيَا أَهْلَ قَرْيَةٍ, until they reached a town. Yes? People of the town. إِسْتَطْعَمَا أَهْلَهَا, they asked for food, because it was a customary that you feed the guest. فَأَبَوْا أَن يُضَيِّفُوهُمَا, but the people refused to host them. فَوَجَدَا فِيهَا جِدَارًا, they both, meaning Khidr alayhi salam and Musa alayhi salam, found a wall. يُرِيدُ أَن يَنْقَضَّ فَأَقَامَ. يُرِيدُ, so I said أَرَادَ. يُرِيدُ, yes, same, إِرَادَ, يُرِيدُ. يُرِيدُ أَن يَنْقَضَّ فَأَقَامَ. The wall intended, يعني, the wall was on the verge of collapsing. فَأَقَامَ. So Khidr alayhi salatu wasalam, single-handedly, he straightened the wall with his hand. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam said, لَوْ شِئْتَ لَاتَّخَذْتَ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا. If you wished, you could have taken payment for this. Why do you take payment? These guys didn't give us food and you've straightened their wall for them. This is what Khidr alayhi salatu wasalam said. قَالَ هَذَا فِرَاقُ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنِكَ. This is the parting between us now. That's it. You said yourself that if you ask again, you question again, the journey will not continue. And now there was 3 incidents that took place. Number 1, the boat. Number 2, the child being murdered. And number 3 now, the wall. سَأُنَبِّئُكَ بِتَأْوِيلِ مَا لَمْ تَسْتَطِعْ عَلَيْهِ صَبْرًا. But before we go, I shall inform you of the interpretation of the incidents which you could not bear with patience. Before we go, we leave these 3 incidents that took place. Why I did them, I'll tell you why I did them. So the Prophet ﷺ said at this point in the Hadith of Bukhari, that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mercy on my brother Musa alayhi salam. Only if he remained patient, we could have known more marvelous and interesting things. And not just these 3. So, now there's a few questions here on this 3rd particular verse. Because food, okay, murder was different. But down here, giving food is not wajib, is it? It's not necessary. So why did Musa alayhi salatu wasalam object to something like this? Even though he gave his word that he will not. So let's see what Imam Razi rahmatullahi alayhi says. Imam Razi rahmatullahi alayhi, Imam Shaykh Yasir Al-Hanafi says, I've never had a question to do with the Quran except I found the answer in Imam Razi tafsir. I've never had.
So who's saying that you've never had a question?
Imam Shaykh Yasir Al-Hanafi. Photographic memory. He had photographic memory. He said, I've never had a question or obfuscation that somebody's raised regarding any verse of the Quran except that I have found the answer in tafsir of Imam Razi. And it's true. I've experienced so many times, I've had a really strong question I'm not going to mention the question here because I don't want people to start, Shubha can start get people confused. It literally took my sleep away. And it was Ramadan, subhanAllah, a few years ago. Now, it was Qaylullah time, I wanted to go sleep, and this question came to me, and I couldn't go sleep. I can't go sleep. And I found the answer in Imam Razi's tafsir. Beautiful. So, Imam Razi rahmatullah alayhi mentions, he says, وَهَا هُنَا سُؤَالَاتٍ. There are a few questions regarding this verse. الأول أن الاستطعام ليس من عادة الكرام فكيف أقدم عليه موسى وذلك العالم الخضر لأن موسى كان من عادته عرض الحاجة وطلب الطعام ألا ترى أنه تعالى حكى عنه أنه قال في قصة موسى عند ورود ماء مدين رب إني لما أنزلت إلي من خير فقير. So the question is that istit'am, asking for food, this is not the habit of noble people, of righteous people. People who have nobility, integrity, civility, they don't give me food. Yeah?
But they could have potentially been poor people.
Yeah. Then you let Imam Razi answer this one, yeah? Up to the line. I'll let you answer the one, yeah? So, and especially Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, Jagir is a good friend, he doesn't mind. Especially Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, when he left Misr to Madian, he didn't have no accommodation, no food, nothing. What did he do? He made the dua, Rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khairin faqir. That's the dua that he made. Which means, oh my Lord, whatever goodness you descend upon me, I am in need of this. So the ulama say that reading this dua, a person, if they're not married, they don't have an accommodation, they don't have food. If you read this dua, inshallah, Musa alayhi salam, you'll get all of these things. Because it was after this dua, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam got married, and he got accommodation. Yes? And Beros, you can start reading this dua, inshallah. Those here, inshallah, start reading this dua. Rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khairin. Okay, Surah Qasas. Surah Qasas, verse 24. Surah Qasas, verse 24. Rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khairin faqir. So Musa alayhi salatu wasalam has done this in the past. We had nothing, but he asked Allah. And now, in a place where giving food is not necessary, he's asking for food. How is this? What's the explanation? So Imam Razi says that أن إقدام الجائع أو إقدام الجائع على الاستطعام أمر مباح في كل الشرائع بل ربما وجب ذلك عند خوف الضرر الشديد. The asking for food in itself is a permissible act in every Sharia. Okay, it might not be an act of nobility, but it doesn't mean that it's not permissible. Number one, it's permissible. And number two, sometimes not only is it permissible, but it becomes necessary, especially when you are in the state of need, you're hungry. You need to save your life. Now, we don't know the exact situation of Musa and Khidr, but they were traveling. And there's a reason why both asked for food. Especially when you look at Musa alayhi previous, where he only used to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So down here, it is plausible that Musa alayhi and Khidr alayhi asked for food because they were in a situation where they needed food. Okay? Now, the other question to do with this verse, Imam Razi says, أن الضيافة من المندوبات فتركها ترك للمندوب وذلك أمر غير منكر فكيف يجوز موسى عليه السلام مع علو منصبه أنه غضب عليهم الغضب الشديد الذي لأجله ترك العهد الذي التزمه مع ذلك العالم في قوله إن سألتك عن شيء فلا تصاحبني وأيضا مثل هذا الغضب لأجل ترك الأكل في ليلة واحدة لا يليق بأدوى الناس فضلا عن كليم الله الله أكبر. The other question here is that Musa alayhi salatu wasalam got angry. Now, why have you fixed their wall even though they did not feed us? But the question here is that feeding is not necessary. It's mandub, it's preferable. If you feed somebody, you'll get reward. If you don't feed them, you will not be punished. So if you don't feed me, you're not going to get this sinful. Yes? But if you feed somebody, what happens? You'll get reward. So it's not necessary. So why did Musa alayhi salatu wasalam demonstrate so much, demonstrate this anger and indignation upon an action which is not necessary? Yes? And also, in the process, he stopped his important journey with Khidr alayhi salatu wasalam, after which he said that if I do anything like this again, you don't keep me in your company. But this is all over a matter which is not necessary, in feeding. Yes? So, jawab, answer. أما قوله الضيافة من المندوبات قلنا قد تكون من المندوبات وقد تكون من الواجبات بإن كان الضيف قد بلغ في الجوع إلى حيث لو لم يأكل هلك وإذا كان التقدير ما ذكرناه لم يكن الغضب الشديد لأجل ترك الأكل يوما فإن قالوا ما بلغ في الجوع إلى حد الهلاك بدليل أنه قال لو شئت لاتخذ عليه أجرا وكان يطلب على إصلاح ذلك الجدار أجرا ولو كان قد بلغ في الجوع إلى حد الهلاك لما قدر على ذلك العمل فكيف يصح منه طلب الأجرة قلنا لعل ذلك الجوع كان شديدا إلا أنه ما بلغ حتى الهلاك الله أكبر. So Imam Ghazali, Imam Razi, what he's saying? He is saying that giving food, feeding people is a matter which is preferable. But this is not unconditional. It's not unrestricted, meaning it's not mandub and preferable all the time. Sometimes it becomes necessary. Sometimes you have to feed somebody. Why? Because they've reached a situation where their life is in danger. And if you are in a position that you can save a person's life and you don't have you have the means that you don't do, this is sinful. So down there it becomes wajib. But then the question is, how do we know that they reached a situation where they could have died if they didn't get fed? How do we know this? Especially when Musa alayhi salatu wasalam said to Khidr alayhi salam, why do you take wage for what you've done? So this shows that they were not in a stage where the life was at risk. Because if that was the case, then they wouldn't ask for ujra. Yes? Payment. Ask for food. So Imam Razi rahmatullahi says that it's possible that the hunger, it was severe hunger, but it did not reach this stage of fatality where they would have died. But it was severe hunger. And even severe hunger is what? Is a need. Is a need which makes things at times obligatory. It doesn't have to be a hunger that makes you die. It can be a hunger which makes you severely weak, or you suffer greatly. It can be a hunger like this. Now the other thing is, this town, Antakya, which was in Spain, Imam Razi rahmatullahi alayhi mentions that the people of those towns in the time... Sorry? Yeah, Turkey now maybe, but at that time it was in Spain. Is that Antakya too? In Spain? Okay, where's Ayla? Ayla.
Antalya is in Turkey, but Antakya is, I don't know.
Yeah, Antakya, it might be the old name, Allahu Alam. We're talking about several thousand years as well. It could have changed. Yeah? Khair. Imam Razi rahmatullahi alayhi mentions that when this verse was revealed to Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he exposed the people of the city, that these people, they were conjuice. 2 prophets came to their city and they didn't give them food. So they came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam with gold, a large amount of gold. And they said, if you can change the dots of the Quran, what does the dot say? فَأَبَوْا أَن يُضَيِّفُوهُمَا Ba. They rejected to feed Musa alayhi salam and Khidr alayhi salam.
Was that the Prophet Abdul Aziz.
Sorry?
And this story is not to with Abdul Aziz they came to.
No. Came from Prophet Sallallahu
Oh, yeah.
Yes, وَجَاءُوا إِلَى رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. They said it's got a bar, under the bar it's got a dot, which means that they rejected. The people of the town, they rejected to feed them. So instead of putting a dot at the bottom, can you put 2 dots on the top? So it's فَأَتَوْا أَن يُضَيِّفُهُمَا. They visited them to feed them. They visited them to feed them. And we will be saved from this eternal shame. Prophet ﷺ said no. Changing 1 dot of the Quran will entail, na'udhu billah, that there is falsehood in the kalam of Allah. 1 dot. What does the Quran say? لا يأتيه الباطل من بين يديه ولا من خلفه. No falsehood can enter the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if falsehood comes in the kalam of Allah, in the speech of Allah, this will then question, na'udhu billah, the existence of God. What does this mean? Imam Razi says, فعلمنا أن تغيير النقطة الواحدة من القرآن يوجب بطلان الربوبية والعبودية. So changing 1 nukta, 1 dot of the Quran, this necessitates the falsity of there being a God. Subhanallah. Because what if the speech of God is false, then that means where it came from, God is also false. The whole foundation becomes what? Unstable. That's why the aqeedah of the Ahl Sunnah is that kadhib, lying, is mustahil aqlan, is rationally impossible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Lying cannot enter the speech of Allah. Lying is the deficiency. And Allah is transcendent. He is munazzah an naqa'is. He is above all deficiencies. So now Khidr alayhi salatu wasalam said,
In the story, it doesn't say what the punishment was then, because these people were punished. Or that was it?
you get that quote tomorrow, okay? Then that's your homework.
I'm not
You have to find it.
No, that's a different story than I'm thinking. They were punished for trying to...
You bring that story tomorrow, you let us know where it is, okay?
Maybe the week...
No, tomorrow.
I'm there, I can't.
Yeah, you got a phone. You ask ChatGPT. ChatGPT will help you. Very clever nowadays, ChatGPT. So Khidr alayhi salam will now give the explanation, inshallah, of why he did these 3 extraordinary or inexplicable actions. Inshallah, we'll cover this tomorrow, as well as the issue of problem of evil, which is related to this incident. And we might do that in a separate session. The famous question of objection of atheists, which was pioneered by the Greek philosopher Epicurus, that if there is an all-powerful and all-loving God, then why do we have suffering in the world? Why does a 5 years old child suffer from cancer? Or why does a tsunami come where so many innocent people, they get drowned? If your God is all-powerful and all-merciful, because if He's all-powerful, then He should be able to stop the calamities, the suffering. And if He's all-merciful, all-Rahman, then He should have mercy and not let this happen. If He's both, then it shouldn't happen. Even if He's one of them, it shouldn't happen. And it does happen. This is how it's paradox. It's Epicurus paradox. So we'll answer this inshallah ta'ala. And the story of Khidr al-Islam will play a very important role in answering this question, inshallah. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. That's your homework, gentlemen.
I'm not saying I'm going to give an answer. I'm sure I've definitely had a different version of this story.
Yeah.